because I was once a former public school teacher and administrator, and I know the challenges that exist within our schools. And you talk about capacity limits.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that's one of the big things. And you can have the best school, you can have a in between school, but at some point, resources and capacity reach their point in our schools, and so it's good to know that a program like Thrive Kids is around to help fill and meet the void that we have in our school system.
Right. Yeah, we originally started. We were helping with COVID, kind of
Okay.
the navigating
Yes.
COVID, and we built relationships with school leaders, and they said the same thing. You know what we really need? We need help with healthcare services,
Yes.
right? They have a hard time hiring, retaining,
Yes.
developing nurses and social workers or
Yes.
counselors
Woo.
because that's not their primary goal. Their primary goal is teaching and learning, right?
That's correct.
But we need these other things to have a successful day. So,
Hmm.
Children's Hospital saw an opportunity there that
Okay.
where, as healthcare experts, we could partner with schools to increase access to healthcare services and try to make sure that we're helping foster health equity
Okay.
in our NOLA public schools and other schools in the area.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chelsea. So Chelsea, before being at Children's, where were you before that?
So I
What
am
was your journey?
my journey. Well, I'm a New Orleanian,
Okay.
born
What
and
high
raised.
school?
I went to Redeemer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's not there anymore.
But everybody knows about Redeemer.
I went to Cabrini my freshman year, but Redeemer was co-ed, so
Okay.
I wanted to go there. So, but Redeemer is my home. I actually met my husband there.
Okay,
So,
nice.
yeah, and he's a New Orleans firefighter. We have 6 children, 5 of whom graduated from NOLA Public Schools.
Okay.
So I feel I'm invested
You're
in the
deeply
community.
invested, yes.
Community. I've been at Children's for about 6 years. Before that, I was with NOLA PS. I was with our Recovery School District,
Okay.
and before that, with Department of Children and Family Services. So
Got it.
kind of have a good.
You have a good balance.
And in the emergency room, I had a unique perspective. I saw so many families come in with kids that if we had just had early intervention, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And so when Thrive Kids came about this opportunity, I felt like I had to pursue it because then I could do work on that front end instead of waiting
Yes,
till
on the back
we
end.
have devolved into an emergency room visit or an inpatient stay,
be
right?
on the proactive side.
Correct.
Good. Chelsea, I don't know if you know this, but my cousin texted me earlier and she said, "You're interviewing my supervisor." I said, "My cousin's Latoya."
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Armstrong.
Armstrong,
Yeah. So she's one of the OGs, I call her, because she's been there with me
Yes.
since day one. She knows how much I love and appreciate her and
Yes.
her growth and everything she brings to the table.
Yes.
So, yeah, I love Latoya.
Awesome. So you told us a little bit about what Thrive Kids is, but thinking about like in connection to COVID and some other pieces, what was the overall like? Why do we got to do this?
Right. Well, I think it's been building even prior to
Yeah,
COVID,
yeah,
right?
yeah, prior to
but I
COVID.
think COVID really put a
A fire on
spotlight.
it.
Yes, a fire, a spotlight, all of that. People just realized, wow, well, the kids are not okay, and we
Yes.
need to really invest time, energy, and resources into making sure that they're well holistically,
Got
right?
it.
And so a lot of kids were home for a couple of years. They missed a lot of those important milestones.
Yes.
They got back to school, and schools were like, "Wow, we need help getting them back to where they need to be."
Yeah.
So,
That is so important. I remember at that time I was still in the school building, and I would think about the students who the families that chose to be virtual, and then to come when we came back that following year, and like not only the health and wellness parts, but you also think about the social part that a lot of kids missed out on during that time. So it was just as impactful
Right.
as the work that you all are doing. So I know in schools we did a lot of work around social emotional learning. We actually had our partners over at Primetime Reading come and talk about how they were incorporating social emotional learning inside of literature. But we're just so grateful for partners like you all who are stepping in, like I say, filling the gap and doing it with excellence.
well, thank you.
Because when I hear about Thrive Kids, you're like, oh yeah, I love what they're doing over there. So kudos to you and your team for the work that y'all are doing.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we've expanded this year where we have a full time therapist. Think about if you had like a school therapist. That's really
Yes.
what our folks do. They go in, they're not doing leap tests. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they're going in, they're just doing therapeutic services. So they're getting referrals, they're screening, they're building treatment plans and using evidence-based treatment
Got it.
modalities to really get to the root of what's going on with these kids so that they can thrive in school.
Yeah.
And our regular school social workers and counselors don't have a lot of time for
They
that,
don't.
right?
The social worker, Chelsea, the social worker is responsible for attendance.
Mm-hmm.
They will all tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
They wear the attendance hat at the school. They have, the amount of minutes they have to take care for kids who have IEPs.
Correct.
You have other little initiatives that they are leading. And when a social worker leaves at the end of the day, they are totally swamped.
And crisis. They're doing
Yes.
crisis all
And,
day.
and, and then, yes.
Yeah.
It is never ending for a school social worker.
Right. Right. And so as much as they would probably like to sit down and do that therapeutic work that
Yes.
they are trained to do,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the time or the capacity to do that. And so I think that that's kind of our niche. It's not those kids that have IEPs who
Mm-hmm.
have those minutes that they're already receiving
Yes.
because that's federally mandated. We
Yes.
know that's going to
We
get
must
done.
do that.
Right. And so it's those other kids that are maybe just really depressed, really
They're
angry.
slipping through the cracks.
You have been slipping through the cracks, and they need that extra attention. They need that trusted adult at school. They
Yeah.
need those therapeutic services so that they can, you know, it's hard, right, to learn fractions when you are depressed
Yes.
or hungry,
Yes.
or any of those things,
Yes,
right?
definitely, definitely. So let's talk about the supports that you all provide. Under the care coordination arena, what is provided to schools?
So care coordination is really the backbone. We have over 3,000 kids right now that we're providing care coordination services for.
Okay.
And I'll explain what that is. So we have nurses and social workers. They work on campus in our hospital.
All right.
And they just work to build relationships with families, assess what they need, get them connected to what they need, and mitigate those barriers that were keeping them from accessing it in the first place.
Got it.
Right? So if you have a family and maybe you have Johnny and he really needs, to see a psychiatrist. His mom's like, I think he might have ADHD. I don't know.
Okay.
I'd like him to see a psychiatrist and get evaluated. But she can't find a psychiatrist that takes her insurance.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a way to get there
There.
once she does find it. It's in the middle of the day, so it's not convenient.
Mhm.
She has to take off work, all these things. Maybe she doesn't even, English isn't her first language.
Yeah.
Right? So
Mhm.
we want
Those
to.
all exist.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to help navigate that healthcare system, get them connected, provide that transportation if they need it,
Okay.
provide that interpreter if they need it, or those translated materials that they
Mhm.
needed, and make sure that the access is there for Johnny, just like it is for other kids that have an easier time
Yeah.
traditionally, accessing
Mhm.
those services, right? And that's what we want. We want equity. We want it to be
Yeah.
accessible to everybody. And so we try to meet parents where they are, get them what they need, and then we follow them. We continue to follow them to
Good.
make sure that nothing new happened, right?
Okay.
Because sometimes they have a new baby, or sometimes they have a
Yes.
new problem. Sometimes, they go through a divorce. Now everybody's kind of in a
Yes.
turmoil, right?
Mhm.
So whatever it might be, we want to be there to help.
I love two words you just said jumped out to me in my mind as you were talking. One was access.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that every family has access to this, despite their first language, despite transportation. Like this is truly remarkable. And then you talk about equity. Like this is something that everybody that we're doing so that everybody gets what they need to eventually be them best selves.
Right.
So I love it already.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I'm really proud of it. I think it's amazing work. I know we have built services within our own. I think that was one thing that was hard, right? Finding a child. We know that there's a shortage of child psychiatrists.
Yes.
We know that there's a shortage of mental health providers.
Yes, that too.
Right?
Yes.
And so sometimes at school they'll say, well, yeah, I think you need counseling, and they'll give you a piece of paper, and you need to go
I've
home.
given
and
that piece
call-
of paper.
So, but we eliminate the paper, right?
Okay.
We have our own psychiatric nurse practitioners,
All right.
our own psychiatrist, our own pediatrician that manages medication for kids. We have our own therapists,
Okay.
licensed clinical social workers, and licensed professional counselors that work on evenings and Saturdays so that
Oh
we're
wow.
minimizing
Yeah.
learning disruptions and we're not having my parents have to take off of school. Some of it is telehealth, some of it is in person.
Yeah.
We try to do what works best for the family because every family is different.
Chelsea, as you're saying that, I'm thinking I'm in church. I'm clapping my hands and stomping my feet. That it is so awesome to hear about the evening piece and the Saturdays, and knowing that I think everybody looks at New Orleans from our school system and say, hey, it's different. And yes, it is. It is different, but it also allows for the space to be innovative and to bring people together for unique opportunities. And I think this is one of those great things that you all are doing at Thrive Kids. Of in a decentralized school system,
Right.
here's Thrive Kids.
Right. And you know what's good about it is that we know in New Orleans sometimes our students switch schools
Mm-hmm.
one year to the
Yes,
next, right? And sometimes all their information doesn't follow
that's
them,
correct
you
too.
know. But you know what stays the same? The medical record.
That
And
part.
so I can see if he starts going to a different school next year, I can say, well, hey, last year Johnny was seeing this doctor and we
Okay.
had him set up for therapy. We can get that, you know, whatever. We can make sure the school knows these are what services he has in place. These are the evaluations that we did. Because parents do enroll, they sign something that allows us to look in their medical
Okay.
record and speak to pertinent school staff about that child's health.
Got it.
Right? So even if it's a kid with, say they have diabetes and it's not managed really well and they switch to a new school and the nurse is like, well, I don't have orders. I don't know what time,
Okay.
all of this. We can just look it up and pull it and give it to them.
Wow, Chelsea.
Right.
So, so the partnership between you all and Nola PS, who was that? I mean, this is awesome.
Yeah. So we originally started in Jefferson Parish because it
Okay.
was easier, right?
It is.
They
That's
have,
what everybody says.
is
Yes.
it, they have a centralized school district. There's
Uh-huh.
one guy that was
It's
like,
one person
yes,
gotta
I
go
want to
to.
do it. He signed a contract and he told everybody, hey, this is what we're
That's
doing
what
now.
we're doing.
So
It's a
it's
little
a
bit.
little different.
It's a little different.
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
to us about this one.
Well, we were working with Kelly Jordan. who
Okay.
you know,
I'm
I know
familiar with Kelly
right?
Jordan. Uh-huh.
And Olin Parker at the
Okay.
school board, and they loved the work that we were doing, and we were like, how can we get this into Nola PS schools? And then at about that same time, we were working with Dr. Jennifer Avegno with the Department of Health,
Yep.
and they were looking to incentivize somebody to improve mental health supports
Okay.
in Nola public schools through ARPA dollars, right?
Got it,
American
okay.
Rescue Plan
Uh-huh.
Act. And so it was kind of like at the perfect timing, and really with Dr. Avegno's support with the city, and the city council voted, and
It was.
here we are.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good.
and so we were afforded $10 million over the next 3 years to enhance those supports.
Good.
And I think I think we're doing a good job. We were able to expand this year. We hope we can expand again next year. We are constantly looking for alternative funding so that we can
Okay.
be sustainable.
Yes.
And I hope it's not a secret. I don't think it's a secret. But on Friday, we just found out we won a Department of Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention grant.
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, it was amazing, and that's going to help us improve services for kids exposed to violence.
Got it. Okay.
It's really just focused on those kids, but it's going to help us expand. It's going to help us stay sustainable with these different programs and these different funding sources.
It's crazy you say that because about a year and a half ago, I had, I can't think of her name, Chelsea, but she runs the violence interruption program.
Oh, with Ubuntu or
Don't hold me to it.
okay,
But we were talking about that partnership and how that was something great for our schools, because at the end of the day, what you're seeing is a burnout of teachers and school leaders, because honestly, they say, hey, we signed up to educate children, but there's some things that we're not great at.
right,
And being able to say, honestly, that's not what we do best. And to know that we have different community partnerships that are available to say, hey, come in, bring the families together when there's beef inside of our school building, and say, hey,
Right.
this is how we can have meaningful conversation to squash things
Right.
and move forward.
yeah, it's CFR Center for Restorative Practices.
Yes, Center for Restorative Practices. Yes.
Yeah,
That is correct.
Troy, right? I think Troy,
yes,
yeah.
Troy Burchett.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
yes.
So that's what I'm saying. There are these wonderful experts in these different fields. So the school doesn't have to be the expert,
Yes.
right? You can bring in Troy. You can bring in Thrive. You can bring in communities and schools. There's so many people that can really handle that as the experts, because I'm not the expert in education. I can promise you that, and I'm not trying to tell anybody how to
How to run their classroom in their
yeah.
school building either.
Right. But I do know a little bit something about
Good.
this, right?
Yes.
And so I think just putting the right people, plugging in the right people, and it's
Yes.
going to take some of the pressure off of school so they can get back to teaching and learning,
Yes.
right?
Definitely. And it's crazy. You mentioned earlier the shortage in some of your key areas. You think about the teacher shortage we have right now, and I'm just thinking about, like, as we think about the recruitment and retention of our educators. There's also these other key the speech pathologists, the social workers, the adaptive PE teachers.
Right.
Like, we need more of these people too.
Right.
For our students to get the services that they need.
And you know what else? They need the support too. As a social worker, I don't know how to support and develop a teacher. I don't know how to make sure a teacher meets his goals and is
Yes.
developed appropriately so they can grow in their career. I don't know how to do that.
Yes.
And so the same goes with our social workers and our counselors and our nurses that are in school. Sometimes they're the only one.
Yes.
And the principal, unless
like-
they're a social worker too.
Oh, it's like, I trust your instincts and your judgment.
Right. But I think that's what's good about us, because we have these amazing managers that work for our program, that are there to support that in-school staff.
Good.
So
Okay.
yeah, they manage, they develop, they staff cases, they help with treatment plans. They're there just to, like, debrief if somebody's had a really bad day, because some of the things that we deal with in schools are not
Yeah.
fun, and the support that we're able to give to those staff, those boots on the ground staff that are in
Good.
school, I think makes all the difference.
It makes all the difference. Yes. I got off my questions. I'm trying to make it back to some of these questions I have for you. All right. What about those students who deal with chronic conditions in our schools?
Right.
How does that support look?
I think that we're
And
really
feel.
uniquely positioned to help those kids in a way that has not been done before. We're obviously a children's hospital. We have 600 medical specialists,
Yeah.
at our fingertips, right? We're not going through a third party. We're directly like, hey, Dr. So-and-so,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And so if we are connected with a kid who maybe has a hard time managing their asthma, has a hard time managing
I was that kid.
diabetes, it could be sickle cell. That's huge
Yes.
in our community, right? There's so many things, and it impacts their attendance at school. It impacts their ability to learn.
Yes.
And we can help make sure that those families have all the resources they need to manage their students' health. And if it's making sure they get to appointments, if
Okay.
it's making sure that we can schedule, maybe they have complex needs and they need to see 3 different doctors. Let's do it on the same day. So mom's only taking off
For
one day of
yes.
work, and kids only missing one day of school, right? And then we can get that documentation back to the school so that the IHP, the individualized health plan, can be written. The nurse knows how to care for those things. Even kids who suffered a trauma. Think about kids who are in a car accident or a
Yes.
trampoline accident or a gunshot, right? And so if we can catch them at the hospital and make sure they have an aftercare plan
Got it.
and they're getting all their follow-up care so that their wounds heal. And then can we connect them to some mental health too, so that their emotional wounds
Well,
heal?
yes.
And so that they're not then 10 years later having the
Having
behaviors,
triggers.
right, because it wasn't addressed back when they were 5 or 10 or 11.
Yeah, I love that, Chelsea. All right, so I'm also thinking about too, like, we've talked a lot about the school age children, K through 12, but what about the early learning space? So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so this year we, the great citizens of New Orleans did vote for some millage dollars to
Okay.
go towards early education, right?
Yes,
And so, or early learning.
Yep,
And
early
so-
childhood education.
Right. And so what we partner with New Orleans City Seats. So they have
Okay.
about 1,000 seats, if I'm not mistaken, that are reserved for low-income kids.
Okay.
And we provide developmental, emotional, health, like wraparound services
Okay.
for those kids, should they choose, to need it. So if we have a year and a half, 2 years old, but we notice they're not really talking on time. They're
Okay.
not meeting their developmental
Developmental goals.
milestones. We can go in, we can assess, and then we can make recommendations, and then go ahead and get them evaluated for see what's going on. Maybe they just need some speech therapy, or maybe they have autism. I don't know. But let's find out now so that
Got
we
it.
can get the interventions in place. We want to get them connected to Child Search
Okay.
because I think this is the part that gives me chills. If we had every kid starting kindergarten or pre-K in the right classroom with their IEP already written,
Whew.
with the right accommodations in place, and not starting from ground zero on day,
On day one,
and being like, oh wait, what's going on here?
Chelsea, you just spoke to my soul just now.
Yeah.
Because I was a second grade teacher. I was an instructional coach for pre-K through third grade. And on the first day of pre-K and on kindergarten, the stories I can tell you, like,
Yeah.
you just dropped off. Where has this child been, for the past few years or months? What's been going on? We get a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
And I just think about if support and services were available to families beforehand, how much smoother the first day of school could be for so many kids
Right.
and their parents.
Right. And they don't, I'll be honest, I didn't know about that stuff when I was just a mom. I was in my 20s. I didn't know about Child Search. I didn't know about, I don't, but we're
Yeah.
here to kind of say, hey, there's early steps. Let's get you connected to Child Search now
Yeah.
before they turn 3. And then they've already got everything.
Mm-hmm.
And think about how down the road all that missed learning time in kindergarten or even the other kids in the classroom. Because
Yes.
now the teacher's like, okay, well, we have this kid. He's
Because
probably
sometimes you have extreme behaviors.
Yeah.
And it's been times where we've had to, and parents, and this is enlightening for you all too. Sometimes when there are situations where the student shows up on the first day of pre-K and kindergarten, and we're unaware of what all the student may need to thrive. Sometimes we have to hire extra people
Right.
to make sure that those classrooms are equipped with the proper human capital to meet the various needs in the classrooms.
Right. But what if you knew that they were coming in with an IEP and they needed a pair, you've been able to plan ahead, or you know that they need to be in a different, maybe a smaller classroom and this, but trying to start from ground zero on day one.
Yes.
And it's not like it's just that one kid. There's probably several.
It's a few kids.
And
It's
so-
never just one.
Right, right.
I
And-
just think about the tension that's alleviated.
Right. And the learning that can happen
Yes.
on day one.
Yes.
Right. And not, yeah. So I really think that work is probably in the long run when we're all sitting around in a rocking chair thinking about this work, or I might be, but is that it's going to be really the most impactful because it's that early intervention is so key.
Got it.
Right.
Now, Chelsea, we also know that it's football time. We talked about the Saints earlier, but New Orleans wouldn't be the city it is without high school football. And we know we also have volleyball season going on. There's a whole bunch of sports going on right now. So how do you all support schools and especially our student athletes?
Right. So, well, at Children's Hospital, we do have a sports medicine program. So
Okay.
that program does partner with many, many schools in the New Orleans area. It's free services. They come out, they come to the games and help with all the things that an athletic trainer might do,
Okay.
right? But in addition to that, we do sports physicals for kids, right?
Okay.
So we make sure, because sometimes
Oh,
that's
nice.
hard, right?
We
That's hard.
need, but that's hard for parents too. I'm going to call it out because sometimes they need it for sports, and if your
They need
child's
it
in a
for
marching
band.
band,
They need it for
they need
band.
it in the band too.
And think about, to me, it's a mental health intervention, right? Because we know kids are happier and healthier
Yes,
if
when
they
they're
are involved
involved.
in sports or
Yes.
band or something like that, and they're part of a community. They're connected. They
Yes.
have belonging. They have purpose, and they get exercise, and they, all these,
Yeah.
and they're doing pro-social, good
Yes.
quality stuff, right?
All those things. Put a check mark for all of those, Chelsea.
So to me, I'm happy to do it. Our nurses will go out and they'll do sports physicals. We just did Ben Franklin Elementary. I think we did almost 100 last week
Okay.
for their kids. And then when Mardi Gras, when the
Yes.
band season starts really kicking up, we'll be doing that again. But we want them to be able to play sports. We know
Yes.
that's important, and it's hard for parents
It is.
to get off work. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it. I know I was one of those parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, that's good to hear. That is great to hear. Now, what challenges still exist, Chelsea? You all are doing lots of great work, but I'm sure there's still some roadblocks.
Yeah, sure. I think that I want to have more services for our Hispanic community. It is growing, and
It's
it
growing. Yes,
and
when we look at the enrollment data,
mhm,
it's been growing over the past 10 years.
right. So
Yes,
finding bilingual providers. If
yes.
I could tell any my kids anything, if they would have listened to me in the first place, but I would tell them take Spanish,
A
learn
second
Spanish,
language.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
because we need those bilingual providers. We
Okay.
need bilingual doctors
Okay.
and that understand the culture and that make this community feel safe because a lot of this
Mm-hmm.
community has not felt safe in a very long time,
Yes.
and they need to go to a doctor or a provider that they feel safe with. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think enhancing those supports are really important to me. And we also we need sustainability. This the money is finite.
Mm-hmm.
That we have now, and so we really are working hard to be sustainable past this initial funding,
The past 3 years.
and we want to
Mm-hmm.
grow. We don't
Yeah.
want to just be in these 20 schools. We want to be in all 67.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and with an in-person person. And I mean, we have services available to all with the care coordination, but I'd like to see that in-school therapist
Yes.
in all 67 schools, and then let's keep going.
I love that. But Chelsea's been doing the homework because Chelsea knows exactly how many schools there are on these parents. Not everybody knows that exact number.
That's my job. I think it's actually that's the Nola Public School,
That's
right?
the-
I think it's
mhm.
73 if you count the Bessie.
If
and
you
the,
count,
yeah.
Chelsea knows a little something, something. Okay, all right. So, the last few minutes we have, Chelsea, what has been some of the big wins for you all since launching Thrive Kids Wellness Program?
I think the reception from the school community, both and parents and kids, I think that we've just been really well received.
Mhm.
I know that we only were about a year in our NOLA Public Schools venture, but the feedback that we got was like, hey, we love having this in school. It
Yeah.
gives it gives me now time to do these other things that I was always putting on
Yes.
on the back
Mhm.
back burner and the parents are like, wow, my kid is finally getting the counseling he needs and I don't have to do anything. He's getting it right there at school.
Mhm.
So just hearing that and the impact that it makes on those anecdotal levels,
Got
it really warms my heart. And then the fact that we've been able to grow, I know that we're going to keep growing,
Mhm.
and I think that we have the right recipe for the work that
Yeah.
we're doing, which is evidenced by, receiving this new federal funding,
Yeah.
right, to
Mhm.
continue this work for kids exposed to violence.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the families that are listening, and they may be interested in what you all are providing at Thrive Kids, how do they get in touch with you all? Do they go through the school? Can they just go directly to you all?
Yeah,
What's the process for
they
navigating
can
that?
go through their school. They can ask all schools hopefully know what we're doing
Mhm.
by this point, and so they can ask, hey, how can I get connected to Thrive? But you can also just go to the chinola.org website.
Okay.
It's chinola.org/thrive.
Okay.
And there's a small little form that you can fill out. It just has some demographics. Hey, what are you looking? What needs do you need to be met? And then we'll call. One of our care coordinators will call. They'll do an intake, and they'll get you connected with what you need.
Got it. Well, what's been the greatest part for you, Chelsea, personally?
Every day is great, to be honest.
Mhm.
But I'll be,
Because
spending.
you seem like you're
I'm passionate.
You're very passionate, and you love
I love it.
you love what you're doing.
I wake up ready to get out of bed every day because I get to do this work.
Mhm.
It is so fulfilling for me. I working in the emergency room, I felt so helpless because
Mhm.
things had gotten to this point where, well, I can offer you this and this, but it
Mhm.
really wasn't going to solve anything. And I
Yeah.
felt so useless, right?
Mhm.
And this, I feel purposeful. I know that we are making impact and that we're doing good work. So I love that.
Got it. And then one last question we ask everybody on the show. What is your one hope for the city of New Orleans?
Well, similar to our mission or our vision is that all kids have access to health care, to education, to housing, to food,
Yes.
to all the
Mhm.
things that
all,
every kid,
all the things they need.
every kid, not
Mhm.
just some kids in some neighborhoods, but every kid
Mhm.
has access to those things that you need to
Mhm.
be have a happy adult life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've heard it right here. We talked with Chelsea today from Thrive Kids Wellness Program, and just excited for the work that has been done, not only in Jefferson Parish, but particularly more in Orleans Parish. Definitely giving our kids the resources and the support, and our families too, what they need to be to have sustaining, friendships, academic careers that are going to lead to them being productive, successful adults in our community. So thank you, Chelsea, for joining us on Talk That,
Thank
Nola
you.
Education, presented by New Schools for New Orleans. It was a pleasure having you on the show today. Sorry we didn't have Venus, but Venus, I'm sending my love to you right now. But next week, be sure to join us. Same spot, same time. We'll be joined by current school board member Ethan Ashley from Orleans Parish School Board, District 2, to talk about the roles and responsibilities of his seat. If you're interested in more about dynamic teachers and what's taking place inside and around our New Orleans schools, follow us on Facebook, the New Orleans Teacher Community, and on Instagram, Nola Teacher Community. This is your host, Dr. Ross, signing off. Peace and nothing but love.
Everybody, get up on the floor.